Hey, you're listening to Wrestling Roundup on FreeFM, ArrowFM, and MPR. Usually this is the piece where I would say, and as always, live on Skype is Josh, but unfortunately Josh could not be with us this week. So it's going to be just my lovely voice for the next 27 and a half minutes with a song placed conveniently in between to give me a drink break. We're gonna take a look at Raw first, just because that was the first show this week, and it gave us a lot better of a picture for what SummerSlam is going to look like. So we talked about how we thought last week that it was going to shape up, and it took mostly that turn. We discussed who we thought Drew McIntyre could potentially face, and it was revealed this week on Raw that Randy Orton challenged him. And Drew has since accepted, and that seems to be the match that we're heading forward for SummerSlam between those two. We have two options there, which is continue to push Drew McIntyre to be the strongest person in the division, and he's really got no more challenges after that, which is worrying, because that means they might take the title off him. And if they do, then what they're going to be doing is they're going to be making the Randy Orton versus Edge storyline when Edge eventually comes back for the title. So those are the two options we've really got. And it all comes down to whether WWE want Orton Edge to be for a title or whether they want to continue to invest in Drew McIntyre. But we are running out of serious opponents for Drew McIntyre, which, as Josh keeps mentioning, might mean that it is a great time for a shake-up and just to get some more challenges in here over on the Raw side of things, because SmackDown's got quite a few, which we'll talk about in a bit, but Raw doesn't have a whole lot of those high-tier challenges that you could see taking the title off of Drew. We thought the women's division was going to head in an Asuka versus Shayna Baszler direction, but instead they gave the title to Sasha. It was a real dirty finish, and it really led into the storyline of Kairi Sane leaving, heading back to Japan. So I want to take a moment and say thank you to Kairi. She's been amazing, been one of the best in the women's division across the world, and she will be sorely missed on our screens for WWE, but I'm sure it won't be long before she gets snapped up by somebody when she heads back to Japan, and hopefully be back on our television screens soon. But what that did mean is that Sasha Banks is the Raw Women's Champion, under controversy still, so it might still get reversed, or might still get messed around with, dunno. We'll have to wait and see what the future lies, but it's a little bit weird. It seems to be obviously pushed as Bayley and Sasha hold all the championship gold. They have all 4 belts. And what they're going to do from here, we've only got 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks left to explode those two. And to build a feud to SummerSlam, if that's where we're going. And every week that we don't explode them, it worries me about whether that's the direction we're going or not. And if it's not, then I've got some serious worries. This is the best time to do it. It's the most organic time. WWE just need to commit and do it. And Shayna Baszler did appear, though. She fought Nia Jax, and they got into a bit of a brawl, and I'm not too excited about the clash of these two women, but I don't know if this is just a stopgap to make sure Shayna Baszler is on our TV and being noticed and existing, so that if we have to pull a fast one and switch the title back to Asuka and continue to go ahead with the plans as we thought they were going to, that Shayna isn't out of nowhere. You know, she's here. And the Shayna Nia Jax thing is like a de facto number 1 contenders kind of match. That's the way I can see it. Don't know exactly what direction they're going to head with those women just yet, though. What else we got here? We got, there was a little bit of tension with Rollins and Murphy, because I don't think Murphy really wanted to do what Seth was telling him to do, but in the end, he knew what had to be done, and was about to pop out Aleister Black's eye, because that's the thing to do in wrestling at the moment, it seems. But Dominic Mysterio came on down, interrupted, and beat the ever-loving HE double hockey sticks out of Seth Rollins and Murphy with kendo stick. And just beat him and beat him and beat him and beat him. And I think that further pushes the Dominic versus Seth Rollins match that we could be potentially lining up for SummerSlam. It could also potentially be Aleister Black and Dominic versus Murphy and Seth. We could protect Dominic in a way by doing that. Don't know exactly, but the core of the story is going to be Dominic and Rollins, even if it isn't a 1v1. It's still going to be the basis of all of this building. And that is pretty much going to be us for Raw. I know it's a little bit early, but we're going to go into our entrance theme just because it's a great segue. Because along with this, Buddy Murphy actually debuted a brand new theme song this week. Or just Murphy. Whatever you want to call him. So we'll play that for you now. And when we come back, we'll have results from SmackDown, maybe NXT, maybe AEW. We might even talk about a little bit of Impact. We'll see what happens. But for now, we're going to play you that theme song for Seth Rollins' disciple, Murphy. And you're back with the Wrestling Roundup on FreeFM, ArrowFM, and MPR. I'm Grady, and Josh is not with us this week, but it doesn't matter because we are still giving you all of the results from the Wrestling Roundup of this week. Man, I really butchered that line. You'd think I'd re-record it, but I ain't gonna. Instead, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna talk about Jeff Hardy versus Sheamus in a bar fight. Because that is what we got last week on SmackDown. It was a match that we thought maybe would be on Extreme Rules. It would have made a lot of sense. It fits the theme. It feels like it was almost cut from that to go onto SmackDown, possibly because of not having enough content to fill out multiple shows and stuff like that. There's been a lot less wrestling on each show. The pay-per-view was really short as well. But either way, it was an entertaining match. And it ended up with Jeff Hardy getting the win. And it seems as though Jeff Hardy is getting set up potentially for something down the line. Sheamus obviously not being pushed aside. He is still there, and he is still a fairly decent, credible threat. But Jeff Hardy gets the win in the feud. I imagine it's over at that point. And there's not too much further to go. So I want you to keep those two names in mind, Jeff Hardy, Sheamus, as we now move on to a different match. It was a Fatal 4-Way match, where Grand Metalik actually defeated Lince Dorado, Drew Gulak, and Shorty G. And it was a bit of an interesting one. And Grand Metalik seemed to come out of nowhere. I think nobody would have predicted him out of that section of guys to win, but he earned himself an Intercontinental Championship match, which, you know, I don't think he will win. I think AJ Styles will probably win, but there's a chance. And so there's just another name who's been elevated in a simple Fatal 4-Way number one contenders match. And he's already been elevated straight up into that mid-card match against AJ Styles. That'll make you. And so that'll be interesting to see this week, to see just what happens. Because it's possible they use that match to set up something else for the Intercontinental Championship. We don't know just yet how that's going to shake up. I said remember Jeff Hardy, remember Sheamus. I want to add Matt Riddle to that list. He's been picking up wins week by week. He's been having a good showing. He looks like he's set up. He's who I thought would have headed into the AJ Styles feud. But it looks like he's going to be heading against potentially King Corbin and going off in that direction, which, is pretty much a thing for any NXT person who comes up onto the main roster. They have to feud with King Corbin, or they just don't count. But yeah, so I want to put Matt Riddle's name up there. So now we got Jeff Hardy, Sheamus, Matt Riddle. And then there was a very specific backstage segment with two members of the New Day. If you haven't seen it, I suggest you go watch it. It's quite emotional, and it's really cool. Basically, Kofi Kingston explains, Xavier Woods is injured, I'm injured, Big E, it's your time to shine. And pretty much just endorses Big E as a singles competitor, which is something people have been wanting and people have been yearning for a little while. After we had the whole Kofi Kingston singles run, everybody's sitting here going, well, there's no reason Big E can't get one. The question is going to be, what's the ceiling on Big E's singles run, I personally would love him to capture the Universal title off of Braun Strowman, or whoever has it, at the end. But I don't know if he's going to be heading into an Intercontinental feud, whether he's going to just be in the upper main event kind of level, or what. But I think there's some big things coming out of Big E, and people should keep an eye on that. I think in the singles run that he's going to have, he's going to show everybody that he can do the entertaining stuff, but that he can also flick that little switch, get serious, and pick up some wins, and show everybody why he belongs here. And I'm looking forward to the Big E singles run. I really am. But then, so now we've got Sheamus, Jeff Hardy, Matt Riddle, Big E, all guys who are starting to boil up into this main event section at the top now, and they can really go anywhere from here. And they're all competitors that Drew could face, I could definitely see Drew versus any of those people, and set up great matches that he hasn't had before. So, I don't know. Maybe in the next shakeup we switch champions around, and we move Drew to SmackDown, and we move Braun or whoever is the Universal Champion at that time over to Raw. And that opens up a lot more opportunities for what we can do with Drew and with his title. I think that is all that there was also one final thing in the SmackDown Women's division. Bayley and Banks are trying to drive a wedge between Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross. Basically making them face each other, and then they're going to be having a tag team title match this week. It looks like they're potentially on a collision course for breaking up, in which case we'll have our third feud in the women's division, which we need if Banks and Bayley are going to be holding all of the titles hostage. We need those non-title feuds to be doing something in the women's division. So let's jump on over to the black and gold brand NXT, because we've got some results. It seems as though Dakota Kai is definitely on a collision course for Io Shirai and the NXT Womens Championship. She ambushed her yet again, proving that she is naming herself the number one contender. They had a quick little tag team match, Candice LeRae and Dakota Kai versus Shirai and Nox. Shirai and Nox came out on the top, but it was because of Dakota Kai doing some heelish antics that led to them losing. So it's still, Kai is still strong. Kai is still heading into this championship clash. Sadly, I don't think she'll pick up the win. I'd love her to. I really would. I just don't think that is where it is heading. I think Io Shirai will probably hold on to that title for a little bit longer. We've also got the NXT Championship. Obviously, Keith Lee vacated the North American Championship, and we'll talk about where that's heading in a little bit. But the NXT Championship seems to be a collision course of Keith Lee and Karrion Kross. I know William Regal got on the little Zoom and told everybody that he doesn't let his competitors quickly name matches and stuff like that, but he does quite a few times, so double standards. But Keith Lee calls out Karrion Kross, and then ultimatum, give me the championship opportunity, and all of this. It seems as though this is where we're building towards. I imagine it'll be at the next TakeOver, TakeOver 30. And just in case you weren't a fan of big men calling each other out, we threw in Cameron Grimes to get a little bit of a comedy spot in this segment, as Keith Lee just beats the poop out of him. We've got, I said I'd talk about the North American title. We already knew that the former Jonah Rock, now known as Bronson Reed, is going to be one of the men in this North American Championship ladder match. And as predicted last week, Dexter Lumis is the second competitor. He managed to defeat Timothy Thatcher and Finn Balor, continuing the trend now, because there's two of them, of guys who haven't really had a massive push or something massive behind them getting a shot. We're not seeing Johnny Gargano's 50th shot. We're not seeing Finn Balor's 80th shot. We're seeing some new blood coming up into this North American championship scene. And that's good. And I look forward to seeing who will face each other next week, to see who will score the next slot. And hopefully it continues that trend and we get some guys who haven't had a whole lot of success just yet. Some more new blood coming into it. I know one of the members of that triple threat is going to be Dexter Lumis, and I'm sure if I looked hard enough that I would find the other two competitors, but I can't in the middle of recording. I lie, I can. I definitely can. Alright, so I looked it up. We got Damian Priest, Oney Lorcan, and Ridge Holland is the next triple threat match. Ridge Holland hasn't done a whole lot. Former rugby league footballer from England. He was in NXT UK. We'll see what he does. But I got to imagine that Damian Priest is the guy picking up the win there. We'll wait and see. But any of those three that win will inject that new blood that I was talking about just before. In the tag team division, Imperium, or the two members of Imperium that are in the States at least, quickly beat up Everrise. It wasn't that important of a match. It was the post-match that is still important here, because the Undisputed Era came out as a unit and attacked Imperium. Now, Imperium were typically the heels in this, and I know they've feuded a little bit before, but it feels as though potentially we're turning everything around. It does indicate that Adam Cole isn't going anywhere anytime soon, and that the Undisputed Era is sticking around in NXT and showing that they are still here and dominant, and we are the faction to beat in NXT. And we're going to jump over a little bit now into AEW, just talk about a couple results from there. I want to point out that Best Friends and Friends picked up the win in the main event. This is like the section of people that I really enjoy on AEW. I enjoy Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy. I enjoy Best Friends. I enjoy Orange Cassidy. And it was a really good team of people, and an entertaining match, even though there was so many people in the ring and so many people running around. But yeah, I enjoyed it. It was a good match, and I hope to see good things in the future for that team of five. And answering the TNT Championship Open Challenge this week, we had a little bit of pre- and post-match stuff. We got Warhorse, who's an independent wrestler who was asked for quite a bit, highly requested. He came out. He didn't manage to get the win, but he had a really good showing. And it seemed almost like it was a tryout of sorts. And yeah, so Warhorse really put on a good showing. Everybody that I've read loved him. But eventually the storyline was that the Dark Order were coming out to beat up Cody because Brody Lee wanted a shot at the title. And Warhorse tried to stop them, couldn't do it. And then Arn Anderson tried to stop them. And we got a surprise debut. He wasn't in too much of a rush to get in the ring and help. But Matt Cardona, formerly known as Zack Ryder in WWE, Josh's favorite person. That's why I'm talking about this now while he's not on the show. Came out and seemed to side with Cody for now in taking out the Dark Order. And made a little bit of a name for himself in AEW. It wasn't a hyped up debut. It was an out of nowhere debut. And yeah, I think next week he will be in action, if I recall. And the sweet life of Zack and Cody continues. Obviously, the sweet life of Matt and Cody now, it's not as good. But yeah, so AEW heating up, got some stuff going. But yeah, the Dark Order continue to hang around AEW. I think the Brody Lee segment, was for the tag team titles, but same sort of thing, where the Dark Order come out, they try to get some post-match beatdown kind of stuff, or even just get anything, and it seems as though the Dark Order is not getting a whole lot at the moment. It's an interesting storyline to have a faction that should be dominant, and just not getting anything. They're trying all these heelish moves and these tactics, and they're just not getting anything. Unfortunately, we didn't have time for Impact or New Japan, as I have run out of time this week. Sorry for not being able to get to those, but thank you for listening. Thank you for sticking around through listening to me talk. I know it's not easy. I have to listen to myself back when I edit these, so thank you for sticking around. It's been great talking to you, Josh. Bye-bye. If you want to visit our Facebook page, you can do so at facebook.com/WrestlingRadio, or our Twitter page at twitter.com/WrestlingRadio. Hopefully Josh is back next week and we can return to your regularly scheduled banter between me and him. But we'll see you next week.